In the last video, you learned how to get input from the user via command line arguments in your Node.js application. We saw that all of the arguments provided to Node are passed through into our application and we can access them via process.argv. Now, as we were exploring this, we also saw that we don't necessarily get these values in the most useful way possible. Node doesn't provide any argument parsing. It's a very bare bones utility, allowing us to just access the raw arguments. So when I provided this title option with the value things to buy, it wasn't parsed in a way that's particularly useful. I would need to write some code to extract the key and the value from this string, something we're not going to do because most Node.js applications use command line arguments in some way. And there are a ton of great NPM packages out there that are going to make it really easy to set up our commands and options as we want. And in this video, we're going to explore one of them called Yargs. That is Y-A-R-G-S. Let's head over to the browser. Here I have my one tab on npmjs.com. I'm going to go ahead and search for that Yargs package. And right here, it is the first one. Yargs is a pirate-themed application, which is where the Y in Args comes from. And it is a fantastic utility with about 21 million weekly downloads. So it is a widely used, well-tested tool that we can easily integrate into our application. Now you might be saying, hey, I thought this was a Node course and it seems like we're using a lot of packages. We already saw that Node doesn't provide a ton of argument parsing, and at this point, that is intentional. Node has left it up to the community to create various packages, each with their own way to solve the parsing problem. You can then go out and pick the package right for you, and Yargs is one of my favorite, and it happens to also be one of the most popular. So let's go ahead and install it into our project so we can make use of it. From the Notes app directory, npm install, I'll be using I, which is the same thing, it is an alias. Then the module name Yargs, and the latest version, that is at 12.0.2. So we're going to go ahead and install this into our application, then we'll be able to use it to better parse our command line arguments. All right, everything was installed down below, and I'm just going to take a quick moment to clear the terminal output. Now let's take advantage of this in app.js instead of manually looking at process.argv on our own. The first thing we have to do is require it. And once again, I like to go core modules first, we have none, then npm packages, then our own files. So right here, I'm going to load in another npm package alongside of chalk. We're going to call this variable Yargs, and we are going to get it from the return value of using require to load in the Yargs library. Now we can actually take advantage of it, and that process is super easy. What I'd like to do is do a little comparing and contrasting. So to keep the output simple, I'm going to remove this command variable for the moment, and I'm going to remove our if conditions down below. And all we're going to do is print out process.argv. Then down below that, we're also going to log out something from Yargs. It's yargs.argv. So this is the version of process.argv that Yargs has parsed. Now we can see exactly how the two are going to differ. So let's go ahead and start by running our script. Node space app.js, and we're going to run it with nothing additional. What do we get? We get a lot of information for the first version, the one that Node provides, and Yargs provides almost nothing. Here we have an object with two properties. We have an underscore property, which will get populated with various arguments in a little bit once we actually add them. And we have $0, which is the name of the file that we executed. So let's go ahead and actually add some arguments into the mix and see how Yargs is going to help us. Right here, I'm going to set up the add command, and I'm also going to set up that option once again. So -- title equals, inside of double quotes, a name for some note. Let's use things to buy, maybe it's some sort of grocery list. And if I go ahead and run this, now we're really going to start to see some of the advantages. So the first array from Node itself contains what we've already seen before. We have information that's not too useful. we have our command and we have some unparsed option. Down below, what Yargs provides us is much more useful. Our command shows up in the underscore property right here, add, and we have an actual title property on this object that contains the string value. So Yargs did all the heavy lifting of parsing our options and putting them on this object so they're easy to access. I could access the title property to do something with it, like create a new note and save it to our data store. Now, this is the most bare bones way to use Yargs since we haven't configured it to do anything special. By default, though, we actually get some pretty useful behavior. To explore that, let's go to the terminal down below and clear the terminal output. We're going to run our script, so node space app.js, and we're going to do that with the help option, something we haven't done anything to create. It actually comes by default with Yargs, and it displays some helpful information about what's going on with our little app. Now, this first part, this is still coming from our console.log on line 5, which we can go ahead and delete. It is the second part we're interested in. This is what's coming from Yargs itself. So it's printing a little cheat sheet about how to use our tool. It's showing two options that are available: help, which shows the help, that's what we're seeing right here, and -- version, which shows the version number of the tool we're using. That means we can actually run node app.js with that version option, and what do I get? I get 1.0.0. So by default, Yargs starts you off on that version, and you can always customize it to fit your needs. Let's go ahead and do that. Up above, I'll leave a little comment, customize Yargs version, and we do this by accessing Yargs and calling the version method. This takes to it a string as its one and only argument, and we provide our new version number. So maybe I'm ready to move on to 1.1.0 as an example. Now, if we were to save the program and to rerun that version command, what do we get? We get our new version number showing up. So Yargs comes with a ton of useful parsing and features on its own, but it can be configured to do pretty much anything you want, and that's what we're going to start to get into. Down below, I'm going to clear the output, and we're going to focus on setting up Yargs to work with the commands we need it to work with. For example, in the Notes application, people should be able to add notes, remove notes, read individual notes, and list out all their notes. These are 4 distinct commands we want to set up and customize. I want to display help options for each. I want options so I can pass in data, all sorts of things, and Yargs supports all of that. Let's start by working through one command together, the add command. So right here, create add command. And this starts by calling the command method on Yargs. That is yargs.command, and we pass to it an object. This is our options object where we can customize exactly how this command should work. Now, the first thing we have to provide is a name for the command. Is it add? Is it read? What is it? Right here, we do that by setting up a command property, setting its value equal to a string name. Now, I'm going to start with the add command, so I'll set up add as the value. From there, we can also add a description to describe exactly what this does. That happens via the describe property. This is also a string value, and I could have something like add a new note as a way to describe exactly what this command is supposed to do. Now, we can also set up a third property called handler. That's the code that's actually going to run when someone uses the add command. So down below, comma, the next property, handler. This needs to be set up with a function value, and that function gets executed if the command ever gets used. So right here, a brand new function. And for the moment, we're going to have a little placeholder console.log call, and we'll just say something like adding a new note. Excellent. Now let's go ahead and see how all of this is going to change our application by running it from the command line. To start, let's go ahead and use that help option. Right here, I'm going to run the file using the help option like we did previously, and we're going to notice that because we've registered a new command, we have a new commands section. In app.js, I have access to the add command, which adds a new note. Now let's go ahead and actually use it. So node app.js add, and when we run it, what do we get? We get our little message printing to the screen, adding a new note is showing up. So this proves that our handler is indeed running when someone runs our application trying to perform that add command, which is a fantastic step in the right direction. Now let's go ahead and add a second command into the mix. Down below, we're going to add a remove command. So create remove command. And once again, we are going to use yargs.command to set that up right here, passing in the options object, and we'll configure the same three properties. We need a command name. I'm going to call this one remove. We have to describe our command. Well, we actually don't have to describe it, but it is a good idea to describe it. I'll say something simple like remove a note. Then we're going to set up our handler function. So right here, setting that function up and providing some code to run when someone uses remove. Right here, console.log, removing the note, perfect. Now we can use this second command from our program as well, and it's also going to get ended up listed in our help options. So I'll rerun the command I ran 2 commands ago to use the help option. Right here I see remove showing up below add. Now let's use remove. Node app.js remove. And when I do, I can see that removing the note is printing, which is great. That is exactly what we were hoping for. Now it's going to be up to you to add 2 more commands for read and list. Let's go ahead and talk about what I'd like you to do. Right here, I'm going to paste in some challenge comments. There are 3 steps for getting this one done. A big picture goal, add 2 new commands, and you can do that right here below the remove command. Step 1. You're going to set up the list command, and for now, you can just print a placeholder message saying something like listing out all the notes. You want to use list as the name, and then you can pick a description that makes sense, something like list the notes. The other command you're going to create is the read command. Once again, you want to set up the command name, you want to give it a description, and for the moment, you're going to continue to print some sort of placeholder message until we actually wire up the functionality. Now, once you have both of those commands created using the command method, I want you to test your work by running both of them from the terminal and ensuring that you get the correct output. All right, take some time to knock that out. When you're done, come back and click play. How'd that go? Let's go ahead and kick things off by working with step 1. Right here, we are going to create that list command. So create list command. We're going to call yargs.command to register a brand new one, passing in our options object, and we'll start by setting up that command property. The name, list, then we'll set up a describe value, something like list your notes or anything similar would have worked. And last up, we have to set up a handler. So I will do just that, providing a function value. And once again, I mentioned you can just use a placeholder message for now. So console.log, something like listing out all notes. Perfect. Next up, step 2, we have to create the read command. So let's go ahead and do that as well. Create read command with a call to yargs.command down below, passing in that same options object and setting up those same 3 properties. We're going to have our command property, the name for this one being read. I'm going to set up describe. And right here, we'll pick a description, read a note, and then finally, we're going to set up handler because we want to do something when someone runs that command. Right here, a placeholder, console.log, reading a note. Excellent. Now that we have that in place, it's time to move on to the most important step, step 3, which is to make sure that the code we wrote actually works as expected. And this is a very important part of every challenge. Let's go ahead and do just that down below. To start, I'll clear the terminal output, and we'll start with the list command. So node app.js list. Right here, listing out all notes shows up. I misspoke because I spelt things wrong. It should be listing out all notes. Excellent. Then we're going to go ahead and move on to the read command. So node app.js read, And what do I get? Reading a note shows up, which is great. And there we go. We now have a basic configuration with 4 commands set up to run code when the command is actually used. In the next video, we're going to wrap up our discussion of command line arguments by exploring how we can provide additional options for each of these commands. I'm excited to get to that, so let's go ahead and jump right in to the next one.